What up, guys? Today we're going to talk about some Tom Ford. I know. We've got high expectations and small wallets, right? Strap up. Ladies and schmentelmen, boys and girls, this is the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the evening. Listen, guys, you know how I feel about Tom Ford. It's no secret. I think a lot of you guys feel the same way. I think it's one of those things where when you have a brand and a name and an understanding about a house and you have a certain level of expectation, um, it's a double-edged sword in a way because you start to reminisce about all their bangers and then they start to get popular and so they start to make more fragrances, and as they make more fragrances you can't help but question at times whether they're keeping it P. You know what I'm saying? Are they putting the same amount of effort and nuance in every one of their fragrances? Because there's a drastic difference to me when I smell something like Tobacco Vanille versus a Black Orchid or a Noir or um, Oud Wood, Oud Mineral. Like some fragrances distinctively smell okay, and then others are just like absolutely stellar, phenomenal staples slash signature scents. Nonetheless, every time Tom Ford puts a fragrance together, it is of high quality and high standards. The uniqueness and nuance of each fragrance is from fragrance to fragrance different. And I don't know, just felt like giving a spiel about Tom Ford, some things I think about when I think about that house. It's also one of the most cloned houses because they have so many fragrances and their aesthetic is so simple. You know, they're almost like the Apple product of fragrance. They're very highly elegant, extremely simple, minimal design, but their fragrances aren't minimal at all in terms of the DNAs. They are always trying to be very unique and very one of one. Enough of all the jibber jabber. Today we're talking about Tom Ford Noir Extreme. I believe it's Eau de Parfum, just to give you guys a reference, because I know there's been some reformulations and some combinations of previous fragrances, as you can tell here. They kind of go into the fact that it was initially launched in 2012. New version was launched in 2013, and 2015 is when we finally got Tom Ford Noir Extreme. I do believe it is an eau de parfum concentration. Anyway, this is the bottle we're talking about, guys. You know, kind of that chocolate brown on gold. It's almost got like a very retro, you know, this would have been like the look of the surgeon who had like really expensive fragrances in the 80s and 90s. This is what his fragrances would have looked like, you know, this kind of really retroed out vibe. But initial thoughts on this fragrance. You guys often hear me reference this fragrance a lot. Like, for instance, something that immediately comes to my mind is Odyssey Homme Black Edition. I've referenced as a perfect comparison to this. I know off the test strip, um, it is scary how close it is to this fragrance. I'm trying to think of some other fragrances. You know, obviously your spice bombs, your spice bomb infrareds, they all are kind of reminiscent of one another. These are kind of the holiday spices with a slight elevated elegance and sophistication. I personally am a bigger fan of Tom Ford Noir, I believe, or is it Noir Noir? Yeah, just the Tom Ford Noir, the black and like gray or black and silver bottle, the OG. Even though it's might not have the same richness, I love the fresh, dark seduction vibe of the eau de toilette. To me, gosh, it just speaks to me. You know what I'm saying? It even has some of that effing fabulous quality. No, I'm not swearing on stream. That's the actual name of a Tom Ford fragrance for those of you who aren't familiar with Tom Ford. Um, but, you know, a lot of people really take a liking to Tom Ford Noir Extreme. I'm definitely a fan. I mean, trust me, When I found out that Audition Black hit the scene, I was just thrilled because it is like scary close, like 90-95% close to Tom Ford Noir Extreme. And they even captured the depth of the fragrance. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I like the idea of pushing towards this kind of Thanksgiving-y, cinnamon, vanillic, extra spicy, woody, ambery, but kind of fresh, but also really pungent / slightly elegant take on that kind of arena of DNA, because I think that's a DNA that can also go gourmand. And if it goes too gourmand, it always reminds you of holiday and it doesn't have as much versatility and use case. Tom Ford Noir Extreme is really walking the fine line, but I think they've done it in a way that gives it a little more versatility, where it's not just a holiday fragrance. It could be a very masculine, rich, seductive date night fragrance, semi-formal to formal. This certainly isn't a casual fragrance. As far as the usual information, I feel like this is a 4 to 6 spray killer, 8+ hours of longevity, 6 to 8 safely, let's say. Cold weather, it shines, fall, winter. But if you're indoors, guys, you're going to find a reason to rock a fragrance like this because it's very seductive and sweet. And who doesn't like that? You know what I'm saying? Age range of a fragrance like this, because it mimics a lot of what's going on in the Spice Bomb collection. And I feel like the Spice Bomb collection is kind of like a teenagers to 30-year-old category of fragrances for the most part. I mean, trust me, I like Spice Bomb Extreme, Spice Bomb Infrared. I'm a big fan. You know, the dark leather or the night leather, the night vision. I mean, there's so many freaking versions of it that are all kind of nuancing in the same direction. You know, it's a family of fragrance DNA. I do like it, but I do feel like there's so much aspect of a lot of the fragrances that kind of just fit in that teenage to 30-year-old pocket, and they comfortably sit there. And that's why I don't own a lot of Spice Bomb. I have Infrared, I have Extreme. And that's kind of just to get me in that arena. But even Audition Black, it almost goes there and summarizes it for me, if that makes sense. But it is closer to Tom Ford Noir Extreme. And back to the fragrance, it is just a very sophisticated fragrance. Do I feel like, you know, this to me is like a very 8 out of 10 fragrance. Like, what would creep it into the 9 for me is just a little more signature. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of separation in the fragrance so that your nose can go on a bit of a journey in that seduction and all that. I think it's a very like safe, slightly above vanillic. And by vanilla, I don't mean the actual note. I mean, you call something vanilla when it's very plain, right? I think it's slightly above plain when it comes to expensive fragrance. It's very safe as a late night, alluring, dark, mysterious, subtly complicated, but not that much type of fragrance. It's a very easy grab for that use case, but it doesn't have the most amount of versatility, and its complexity is kind of more simple than other fragrances in this category. To me, again, I feel like the eau de toilette here just gives it a dimension of, I don't know if it's like leathery, suede-y, floral freshness that kind of just gives it a little more shine, like it sparkles it a little bit more for me. This is kind of holiday leaning, but you know, I still think it's a great fragrance. Again, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's above average, very safe. I feel like this is a fragrance very much so that unless you really like it in particular, there's some cheaper alternatives to you. You know what I'm saying? I do think it's better than a lot of Spice Bomb. But again, with that Audition Black, and I'll show you the actual bottle later, it's scary close. You know, I just can't justify even the 50 ml of Tom Ford Noir Extreme. Maybe a travel spray. But if I'm going to get a full bottle, I think I'm going to go Noir. Let's go ahead and go to the note profile because I've been blabbing long enough. We've already hit 10 minutes. you know, when I'm doing my typical freestyle bit here. But up top, we have cardamom, nutmeg, saffron, orange, and neroli. I don't get orange. I don't get neroli. Saffron, nutmeg, cardamom up top. Kulfi, let's learn together real quick. Sweets and gourmand smells. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Rose. Is there a rose note in this? Not really. Mastic or lentisque. Is that a resin? Okay, yeah. It is very resinous, I will say, but in a very fresh way. Orange blossom and jasmine, I really disregard that. I don't get any like burst of freshness or floral energy in this. It's very velvety, ambery, dark, spicy emphasized. And then in the bass line, I do get all of this, the vanilla, the amber, the woodsy notes in the sandalwood. It's very vanillic amber though, very heavy. To do a couple of quick comparisons, let's see Tom Ford Noir. I hope I've answered, you know, we did the sprays, we did the seasons, we did the age. So I hope as far as general information, guys, I've given you what you're looking for. Let's just look at Tom Ford Noir. This is an older fragrance to it, but I just want to see note-wise. You know, I think, yeah, you know, so like when we look at this fragrance, it is an eau de toilette, but there's a couple of components that I feel make it a more versatile, but yet a more seductive home run of a fragrance in this DNA. And again, it mimics Tom Ford Noir Extreme, but here are the notes that I feel really kind of jump out in a special way here. Black pepper, which I'm not always the biggest fan of. Leather and iris, right? The combination of black pepper and pink pepper, and then you've just got way more florals. Rose, geranium, clary sage, violet. You know what I'm saying? Verbena. There's a lot more freshness pushed at this fragrance, but then it also has a powerhouse of sophisticated notes in it with the addition of leather, vetiver, and iris. Those are such heavy notes that when they accent fragrances, they really change them. And even the violet leaf up top, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just am just a bigger fan of this DNA if I'm going to go for a 50 ml bottle. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I am totally going to order a 50 ml of Tom Ford's Noir when I get back from New Orleans, when I do my trip. But yeah, I just feel like this is a better, more versatile DNA. I feel like if you really want it to be more holiday, spicy, almost gourmandy, you almost have to question like whether or not you're just going to go with like a spice bomb. Because I mean, and in my opinion, you know, Odyssey Homme Black Edition just captures both of these so perfectly, leaning more on the Noir Extreme than the Infrared or the Spice Bomb Extreme, but still captures that essence and has the sophistication at 100 ml for $20. You kind of only mess with Noir Extreme and Spice Bomb Extreme and stuff if it is like your number one fragrance. Otherwise, there's just other options, and you should just travel spray it, you know, especially since it's so circumstantial. Now, if you're in cold weather, fragrances like Noir, Noir Extreme, Spice Bomb Extreme, Infrared, and all that are probably among the top in your collection because you always have use case to wear them. But even in cold weather, they still lean romantic. I'm going to just say that. I hope I've given you guys some helpful information. Let's look real quick at Spice Bomb Extreme. So similar vibes, you know, vanilla, tobacco, cinnamon, Cuban, bourbon, whiskey, and saffron. So it's got a little bit of a different manly edge to it with the whiskey and the tobacco, but in a nutshell, it's capturing the same thing, maybe just a little bit harsher. Spice Bomb regular. Basically the same thing with a little more fruit, the citrus up top. Maybe a little spicier. Yeah, you know, if we can take it back to main screen here, you know, I'm thinking out loud with you guys. I'm trying to think of the things you would think about and the considerations that you would have. Is Tom Ford Noir Extreme a must-have fragrance? No. It is above average, has a little bit of signature, very safe for the romantic vibes of smelling. In the romantic category, it does have signature. But in terms of your collection, there's other DNAs, or there's other houses fighting for that DNA that present at bare minimum an equal level of competition. Again, but when it comes to Tom Ford Noir, that's a fragrance that I feel like just is so unique and powerful. You know what I mean? It almost has a more Tom Ford's effing fabulous take on the Noir Extreme type, just due to the fact of like the suede leathery combo, but more freshness up top, but also has like the violet leaf, and it just combines to make such a more seductive but super signature rendition. This is one of those cases where I feel like the OG just dominates. But, you know, many people will probably disagree with me. Sound off in the comments for sure. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I love feedback. I love criticism. I love contributing to the conversation of fragrance. But you guys are the community, so your voices are always heard and considered. And I reflect on the direction of where this channel is going. I always consider the people who participate when I'm tailoring my content. That's why I always send you guys snippets on the community page where I show you the next 10 episodes and let you pick which episode you want, and tell you guys when I'm going to go live, and provide different types of long form and short form content regularly to make sure that you guys can consume the content at any level of convenience in your life, super quickly, long form, podcast form. So I really care about the followers and the subscribers and the people that are the conversation of fragrance on my channel. Let's make this a giant family affair. But again, we're talking about Tom Ford's Noir Extreme, 8 out of 10, 4 to 6 sprays, 8-hour longevity projection, cold weather fragrance, fairly ageless, but I do think it leans 25 and up, cold weather leaning, but could be versatile indoors, mostly dark seductive, sits semi-formal to formal in a playful date, romantic, dark, mysterious type of vibe. I hope that was helpful for you guys. Have a blessed week. And until next time, this is the Scent Bubble. Peace.